Hello everyone. Welcome back. I really regret saying this, but I was trying to record. I have like a what do you call it, key lock or like a quick button. Like if I press 9 on my numlock, I start recording. But this time I start pressing 8, so I already watched the video. Then I halfway realized I fucked up, so I had to do it all over again. So here we are. So um, I already know what's gonna happen, but that's fine. That's fine. Um, for my next video, I'm gonna talk about this guy, Gen Z Patriot. I haven't watched the video I was trying to say, but then I realized I watched it halfway. Um, his name is Gen Z Patriot, as you can see. He's basically a young conservative. Um, Now I don't usually mind when young people have stupid beliefs. I used to have stupid beliefs. Not gonna lie, more than I'm proud of, to be honest. Um, but at least I didn't post my stupid ideas online. I probably did some in some YouTube comments. Uh, but again, you know, I didn't post most of them online in a video as a content creator. So who cares? He does. So even though he's young and he's not that bright, I will be good faith. I will be kind. But you have to remember that his ideology is not a just one. Is not a right one. All right. His ideology is basically conservatism. He doesn't have a lot of good arguments because basically he gets all his arguments from people like Ben Shapiro, Donald Trump, all these other content creators or president, which are not very well at debating, which are not very well at having a decent understanding of the world. But yeah, his beliefs are still awful. It's still conservative. Now about the video itself, it's about CRT, critical race theory. Most conservatives don't even know what it means, which is pretty frustrating. So I expect the same from him, honestly. Um, yeah, so we'll see where it goes. Let's get into it.
Braxton Folly. And next will be Dale Brew.
Hello, my name is Braxton Foley. I live in trusty area number 1, and I come to you today to ask
This is the Gen Z Patriot. I recognize his voice. I've watched a few videos of him before.
why you use us kids as political pawns for your political games. You teach us in school that if you're white, you should apologize for your race.
I haven't seen any evidence of this. Could be the case. I disagree with that one.
That we are privileged, and that
Now that's true. White people are in fact privileged. There are a lot of systems that used to be in place that suppress other races. Currently, for example, Palestinians are being oppressed in Israel. There used to be a time when, for example, Irish people used to be oppressed by the British. And the most obvious of all, black people being suppressed by white people in forms of slavery, in forms of Jim Crow laws. Basically any way, shape or form you can imagine. You know, people of other races have been fucked over for literal centuries. And that means that there is a privilege to us. We don't have to deal with all those issues. We don't have to overcome racism or a racist system. Or like, statistically speaking, of course. There are people who are affected by poverty, who are not black or Asian or any other race. But there are also instances, a lot more, a fuck ton more, where people of color are being suppressed uh, um, by the system we currently live in, or have at least had problems in their past to overcome. Like if you were under Jim Crow laws 50, no, 70, 80 years ago, then you, as the grandson or granddaughter of the descendant of that person who lived back then, you would still feel the consequences. I mean, your grandpa wasn't able, was at least uh, um, less able to make money or to get a good housing, or be discriminated against. These are all issues that still have consequence for you today. If you're white, you have less of those obstacles. Your family was able to build wealth. Your family was able to succeed. Your family didn't have to worry about discrimination. Most often. I want to be clear. There have been, of course, races of people that we currently view as white, which could also have been oppressed back in the day. Again, for example, Irish people who've been oppressed by the British. I mean, we still see them as white, but they could also have been oppressed and still have like poor outcomes today in the British system or in the world. But mostly it's about colored people. Mostly it's about people who are descendants of slaves. Most people who are still, for example, in tribal communities. All these people are still being fucked over by the system because we did not address those problems that caused them to fall behind currently. So white people are privileged because they don't have to deal with the consequences of a racist system. That's absolutely true.
We're inherently racist, but
That's not true. The white people are not inherently racist, and I challenge him to find like a classroom image or something where they actually teach this, because I refuse to believe that teachers say this.
ironic part of all of this is that you're participating in racism every single day. For example, at Moore Middle School during lunch, students and the principal stand up and sing an anthem for black people. This is racist because you have a certain anthem for certain people that excludes others. But it doesn't only happen at lunch, it also happens in the classroom, where a teacher by the name of Miss Beecher stood in front of the entire class and said, she can't speak on a certain issue because of white privilege. This is not
Now, I don't like this. You can speak on issues, no matter your color of your skin. However, if you're talking about experience as, then you are not. I don't think you should be allowed to talk about it. You know, my experience as a white guy has been this and this and this. If a black guy comes in, then he really can't talk about what my experience as a white guy, which honestly I think it's pretty much the same. Just maybe he gets more racist shit thrown at him. But anyway, in that context, I think there may be an argument you could make and say, yeah, if I'm talking about experiences of this, of me, of my identity, fine. If you're talking about ideology, I think that's wrong. And I agree with him on that part. If the teacher says, oh, you're white, so you can't talk about black issues, I think that's wrong. And I think therefore he's in his right. I honestly, again, I doubt that his teachers say this, but, we'll see.
not only telling us that we should apologize for being white,
I also disagree with this. Nobody should apologize for being white.
but it's telling us that we should stay quiet because of the color of our skin
Also,
and not give our opinions, which every
again, this is really. I feel like there's more conservative fear mongering. Honestly, I haven't seen any evidence of this. Maybe he'll provide it in his speech or classroom or videos. He's done it before, so who knows. If the teachers are doing this, by the way, I don't think I think he's in his right then, but otherwise I don't. So
human is entitled to. And it's not like only the teachers are choosing to do this. You political activists advocate for this on the official RUSD website. It says, and I quote, "We recognize that because of white supremacy, systematic discrimination and oppression of black, indigenous, and people of the color BIPOC and marginalized communities has occurred.
true, true. Yeah, that's true. There have been white people back in the day who were white supremacists. It was basically everyone. Because back in the day, they believed white people were superior to black people. That's their belief system. That's what they believed. And that's what allowed them to discriminate against black people, to keep them in slavery, to keep them under Jim Crow laws, and it has currently created the outcomes we currently have today. The most recent example, the drug wars.
Question to you is, what oppression have black people faced other than you treating them like a token and an object to push your political agenda?
So, this is easy. Again, racism has come in many forms. The drug war, Jim Crow laws, literal slavery, redlining, all these types of things that black people have faced that white people have not faced. Or at least white people in America. Imagine trying to get like a job and you live in one of those red line districts. Then they look at your paper and they think, oh, he or she's from there. Well, that's a poor neighborhood, or this is like a low education kind of place because in the U.S. your educational funds are tied to the value of your home. So if you live in a poor area, your education's gonna suck. If your education is gonna suck, nobody, or at least few people, want to hire you or let you go into college. Like these are all systemic issues that basically have been divided by racial lines. You know, that's literally redlining, setting up certain districts where black people are allowed in and everybody who's white out of it. This is like, and this is just one example. How about, for example, the justice system, the judicial system? If a white person commits the same crime as a black person, the black person is more likely to get higher crimes or get arrested or get jailed. Like they are being fucked in some way, worse than the white person has for the exact same crime. Like they're literally, there are so many ways that black people have to face discrimination, even when it's not even visible one on one. They're fucked. They often grow up in poor neighborhoods because their parents were poor, or because their dads got arrested, because they're in jail, because the system basically arrests them more because they have been growing up in these environments, because they have been participating in I don't know, in gangs, because suddenly drugs were illegal. Like they're fucked on so many levels for such a long time that it's almost impossible or statistically unlikely to get at the same level as a white man could get on average. And that's how white supremacy ensures that systemic racism stays. That's how white supremacy has ensured that that black people are in a position of discrimination. This has been true for centuries, and it's still true today. These problems are not being addressed properly by the US government, which is unfortunate.
Agenda, but that's not the only thing that you do. Instead of teaching us math, science, and English, teachers give their opinion on politics and stand in front of the whole class lecturing us about how abortion is good and how killing babies is okay.
Okay, so I think teachers should be allowed to give their opinion in class. I don't think they have to say, you're gonna vote Democrat or else. No, I don't think they need to enforce their political opinions, but they are allowed to share their opinions. Like teachers should be able, they should be equipped to address some points, help to understand points. Teachers should be able to go on with these subjects in an adult manner. I think that's fine. I really just think that's fine. By the way, he just set up a false dichotomy. Or well, not a false dichotomy. More of like, he equated with abortion is good, as in killing babies. But if you commit an abortion, or if you have an abortion, sorry, not commit, if you have an abortion, that's not killing babies. Because when it's in the womb, it's either a fetus or, fuck, what's the other word? It's a let's call it just a fetus. If it's in the womb, it's still a fetus. Unless it's out of the womb, then it's a baby. But you're not killing a baby when you have an abortion. Like, these positions are not the same.
A teacher of mine said, and I quote, "This morning it was announced in Florida that they passed a 15-week abortion ban. And so if you're wanted an abortion anytime after 15 weeks, which is typically before you find there's a heartbeat in the womb, that it's illegal in Florida. And so you can't do it." Again, a lot of people don't even realize they're pregnant by then. That's one of those issues where, again, who's putting the say in that? And when you see who's signing off on those laws, it's all men. It's old men. For the most part, old white men. And so, yeah, feeling they have a say over what females do with their body, end quote. Regardless of your stance on abortion, where does a middle school teacher get off thinking that he can push his own opinions as
Well, I think he can express his opinions. Like, I don't know specifically about this Florida law. I know what I know why specifically 15 weeks. I haven't read up in it. There are probably a lot of other YouTube channels who talk about the abortion law in Florida, or at least the one in Texas. I know that one, the heartbeat bill or the heartbeat act, where they basically just wanted to arrest women if they try to cross state lines. Wait, let's look at it. Uh, Civil lawsuits. And the first abortion restrictions to rely solely on enforcement by private individuals through civil lawsuits, rather than having state officials enforce the law with criminal or civil penalties. So basically, if you want to get an abortion, you can be sued for $10,000. This is basically just putting wanted posters on everybody who wants to have an abortion. And $10,000 minimum. Like, this is insane. This is basically like the neighborhood watches. Like, you want to try to get an abortion, everybody in the neighborhood is looking at you, waiting until you will get an abortion, and then they can just roll up like $10,000. It's insane. You just have to have like one snitch in your family and you're fucked. A minimum of $10,000. And this is just the first paragraph. If I go deeper into this, I'll probably hear a lot more fucked up shit. The bill would prohibit 80% of abortions in Texas and would disproportionately affect black women, lower income women, and women who live far away from facilities that provide abortion services. Yeah, this is just fucked. Again, if you want to read through this, you can do it. It's just Wikipedia here. Maybe there are other content creators who have more information about this. I'm not aware of them. But from what I've seen right now, it's already pretty fucked. Academic opinions. Intensely controversial because it's written to frustrate judicial review and thwart the judiciary from enforced people present. Yeah, that's also an argument I've heard. Um, so the Supreme Court allowed Roe v. Wade, um, allowed the woman in this court case to have an abortion. So by Supreme Court records, an abortion should be fine. But by not repealing this act, basically you're saying, okay, well, Roe v. Wade didn't matter. Like, because often in court cases they go back to what has been done before in the past, and we're going to apply that standard as consistently as possible. because that's how you get justice. You know, you commit a crime then, and you get that punishment. You commit a crime now, in a similar case, you get the same punishment. You know, you don't want to disproportionately punish people. That's called justice, of course. And now you have Roe v. Wade, which is basically being sort of quote unquote overturned because of this Texas law, and they don't want to repeal it. Well, it's basically just an abortion that should be legal. It's not legal in law, but it's legal by the Supreme Court. Again, it's a fucked up situation. I recommend like watching YouTube videos about it, reading Wikipedia about it. It's fucked. It's wrong. I know it's the same with Florida, but you know, look into it. It's pretty interesting how fucked the U.S. is currently if you want to have an abortion.
Absolute truth. Without even presenting a counter argument, how are these kinds of people even being hired as teachers? The last thing I ask you guys is, instead of pushing this
Okay, first of all, teachers are not there to argue. Teachers are meant to teach you things. I do think they should be able to defend their arguments like anyone should be, but that's not their job.
insane political bullcrap on us, focus on our education, not your political games. Work
If you want to ask them to give arguments but also not focused on their belief system, then what the hell you're asking? To have arguments but never talk about them? That doesn't make sense.
kids, we need to learn basic things like algebra, write essays, and think for ourselves. Since one is a school, a propaganda outlet for biased political agendas and not first and foremost about academics.
Okay, well, schools have always been like a tool for propaganda. That's an easy one. Like, not everything you learn in class is always the truth. You know, and every book has been written with a bias. Journalists try very hard to not have a bias. School books try to be very objective, to also not have a bias. But if you are talking about issues like politics, if you're talking about issues with very, like history, for example, history and politics or any of those subjects are always written biased, you know, and there is a distinction in how biased one book can be. But it will always be there. Second of all, I don't even need to confront this argument because that's not even propaganda. I don't know, I feel like when he's describing what CRT is, which he hasn't even given a definition of, by the way, just keep it in mind. Like, he gave some statements which he probably thinks is CRT, but it's not CRT. He is giving the argument that basically this is propaganda, which it isn't. I would say at best it's an ideology, but you're not forced to have it. You're not being indoctrinated by it. It may be better on one side of the political spectrum. You know, it may be more fitting of a liberal idea of racism, but it's not propaganda. It's propaganda is often not as overt as this is, or as he frames it to be. Propaganda is more subtle in changing certain definitions or in giving a wrong image of a situation. I mean, if you want to have good propaganda, you need to convince people that the idea you want to support is the best idea there is. And you can do it dishonestly or honestly, but that would be more propaganda than just talking about political beliefs or talking about racism. So it's not, no, it's not propaganda in the slightest way.
Academia, step down tyrants.
Step down tyrants. Jeez. Alright.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Alright, so that was worthless. No mention of CRT, no mention of anything about curriculum. I mean, he was just talking about maybe a conversation he had, which, I mean, could very possibly be that he had that conversation, but I highly doubt that this has been something they constantly touch on or they have touched on before. I know even then everything he said wasn't even talking about systemic or about critical race theory, which is all concerning to me. Yeah, he really doesn't know what he's talking about. So for those wondering, I want to do a brief moment of talking what actually CRT is. So critical race theory, or CRT, basically is where you look at society through a lens of race. Yeah, that sounds wrong, but I'll explain further. So we can currently look at, for example, the prison population, white versus black. Right? Currently, there's 50% of white people, 50% of black people in prison. Now, if you would remove race, we would just see there are 100 people in prison, or like 99 men and 1 woman, or like um, people from the age of 18 to 25 are like 90% of them, and everyone above 25, those are the other 10 people in prison. And we can look at that. Like we have a demographic within the prison, and we can say, you know what? And we can say, this is our demographic, and oh, it's not filling in. Never mind. I'm very capable with paint. Um, like let's say this is our prison population. Found it. This is our prison population, right? And if we look at race, we can see, oh well, there are a lot of black people in prison. Now, why is that? Why are they disproportionately in prison? And then you look at, hey, maybe there's something wrong if you have like, don't try gavel. Maybe there's something wrong in the court. Maybe there's something wrong with the police, you know? Maybe something there's going on. I can't draw for shit. Or maybe there's something to do with their living situation. Or maybe it's something to do with the education they have. You know, where are they? Where is the oh, that's an awful book. Where is basically the problem in the situation that we have? And what are the outcomes of it? What are the consequences of it? How is racism basically affecting our society? So an interesting thing, for example, to think about, band-aids. You may know them as pink kind of band-aids, or like your kind of your skin color, so they are not very well noticeable. Well, why are they that color? It's because white people basically the world has, or at least Europe and America has been focused on white people because they're the biggest demographic. They are the people who were purchasing a lot. So that's why, for example, band-aids in skin color are white skin colors. If you have a pencil and it's called skin color, it's not going to be a black pencil or a brown pencil, you know? It's going to be more of like a pink one, or like a little bit tanned, you know, like a little bit darker. And that's an interesting thing to look at. Now, this is a very small thing, of course. But it's also interesting how these small things or these big things in society has been influenced or influenced by racism. How it has been influenced by the difference or distinctions in race. Or how, for example, uh, how black culture came to be. With the blues, with jazz, with hip hop, with rap music, all those types of things. That's all in critical race theory. Now, I'm not an expert in this, but I do know that critical race theory is basically a lens of analysis of how racism is today, what the consequences are, and how basically it informs our society. And he did not talk shit about what it is. He did not talk shit about any of those issues I just brought up. And even without it, his points are pretty stupid. So I want you to remember what critical race theory is. I want you to remember that all the points he made and he thinks are wrong. Some of them he was correct in, that was a problem. But most of them are not true. He has a very wrong view of the world, that racism is solved, but there's now racism against white people. And that's not the case for the majority of Black Lives Matter, of people who support critical race theory, etc., etc. Now, I hope I gave you enough information. Um, I hope you liked the video. In the future, I want to focus a bit more on philosophy, and hopefully debate some people. I think will be good content. Um, if you're, by the way, interested in debating me or talking to me or doing something, um, comment. Maybe we can talk about it. Maybe if you disagree, we can set it up. Gen Z Patriot, you're not the brightest kid. Um, if you want to talk about your takes, if you want to talk about actual critical race theory or anything else I might disagree with you about, you can also comment me. Um, anyway, if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you later.